You're tuned in with Rodney. Well, not Rod. Facts. Flats. And hash.
From policy halls to terpene calls, stay lit, stay wise. This is the Rodney Hash Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rodney Hash Podcast. Today I sit here with Eric Whited from EBTHC. He's also a very large member of the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition. You may have heard his testimony both on House Bill 160 and on SB 56. Arguably one of the best testimonies, specifically on SB 56, called out multiple reps, trying to hold everyone responsible, over here educating them. Literally gave out a pamphlet. He's got a political science degree, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
University of South Florida.
Yeah, and you're you've actually helped not only me but everyone within this coalition to be able to not only, in large part, write their testimony, but advising us how we can do things, working with the legal aid. Shout out to the legal aid. What was his name again?
Teddy Smith.
Yeah, he's awesome. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you much more than the guy that you're the legal aid to. And we'll talk about that. So I'm going to kind of let you take it from here, kind of just elaborate a little bit more. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Rodney. So I think start off, we were just getting lunch with Eric Sonnenberg, who's on the House Judiciary Committee. If you've watched Rodney's testimony, which if you're on the podcast, you probably have, he was the one that asked multiple questions, including like the follow-up questions about soil remediation. We just got lunch with him. He's always showed curiosity and a willingness to engage with this community. And so, we actually were just telling him how we met. Have you guys been friends for a while? And I said, no, we just kind of met through this, advocacy and stuff. And,
yeah. Which you'd never know.
Yeah, which, and then again, to give Ace Boogie his credit, we actually met at the meetup in Cleveland right before that, which I guess it might have been the MJ Marijuana meetup, but Industry Leaders Unite and them both have done a lot of really good with these meetups to make sure the community is strong and together and stuff. So we met out there and then been testifying together. And I got to be real, I've been saying it to a lot of people, I didn't get in this to make friends, but it's nice to find, I have found some friends, I've found some allies, and I have found some really, like you were saying earlier today, just surprising people that are within this stuff. So, but yeah, thank you for the introduction. As you said, I'm Eric from EBTHC. That stands for Education-Based Tetrahydrocannabinol. The whole premise there is that something that with the coalition that we kind of feel is a leading factor for us is to be education-based and science-backed. What that really means is that we were just telling Eric Sonnenberg earlier that the main problem with this is if they want to hold us accountable, if they want to have regulations against us, well then they need to have a certain level of accountability and a certain level of education on their side. So that's what we do through our testimonies, what we also offer through other things. EBTHC is in its early stages now. It's got a couple blog posts. It's got some other important home grow guide and a couple other basics on there. I'll be adding a lot more as we go. I actually was just talking with a friend on the way up here today. I'm up in Rodney's neck of the state here, and
Northeast Ohio. Shout out Cleveland.
That's good. I always love coming up here. We went to Pierogi Palace today, and it was really cool going up to a very, talk to the guy about cannabis. Rodney talked to him the day before, visited them. They would be coming in there with the state rep, kind of what was happening. The guy was willing to share. Neither of us asked him to, but the owner talked about his own personal experience right to the representative and said, it's actually kind of like, not brash, but direct with Eric Sonnenberg, and said that, if this is something that happens, a lot of us going to be upset if a lot of these changes go through, and it was cool to just hear an older gentleman. Maybe you can talk on his experience a little bit.
So he didn't share his full-blown personal story, but I did tell Sonnenberg that he's a cancer survivor, and I didn't know that. I've actually shopped at this Pierogi Palace for quite a while. Really affordable, like pierogi like that big for like $1.50. We
Buffalo
all spent
chicken, blueberry cheesecake, bacon cheeseburger. They were so good.
I had the strawberry, I had the loaded baked potato, and then I had the mozzarella mushroom, which the mozzarella mushroom is one of my favorites.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but so he's a cancer survivor, the guy that's always serving all of us. And I didn't know that. I also didn't know that he's a Republican. He wasn't just a Republican, he was he led like committees and stuff like that on a local level or a state level, but like he straight up said, like, if you guys do something to adjust this, we're just going to come back with a constitutional amendment.
Which is funny because that's something we heard at the State House at the third testimony that we've both been present at, which was Senate Bill 56 sub-bill, which we can probably take now as we're beginning to do a quick update. So during lunch, there was a couple different things that we tried to do with Representative Seinenberg of District 21. From us, he was kind of looking for more of a perspective, just a direct answer on what, as they're changing the language again, what amendments are the most important to us. So
he also asked us how we felt we should vote on it, which I thought was really important.
He asked a couple times about how the Democrats, he goes, do you think the Democrats should vote if this isn't in there? Do you think the Democrats should vote if this isn't in there? And he really, like, it seemed like he was very intense with those questions. Like, he was very...
He really cared.
Yeah.
And that's something that that dude deserves all the shouts out in the world. If you're in the Beechwood district, reach out to him, ask him questions, work with him, because trust me, he cares. And I hope that he continues to stay in office, because, dude, like...
He was just saying he plans to serve the full 8 years of his term limits if he can, so people like that need to stay around. He was also... Rooster, Ohio was one of the first people I saw to report it, but then some other people have talking more about it now, so there's a lot of changes going on at the Democratic Party at the state level, and so I'm very interested to see... so Danny Isaacson, the House Minority Whip, which, if you guys aren't familiar, the whip's job is to... whip up the caucus. So there's a party leader that kind of sets the initiative and stuff like that, and then the whip is to literally encourage.
Whip up the caucus.
So so right now the Democrats as a party are opposed to like these changes in the cannabis legislation. So the job of the whip is to make sure that like everybody votes along that party line. So they're the one that whips the party into line.
Okay.
So if a party people start
he's the
leaning
guy
out,
that goes and actually talks to all the other people within the party and
yes,
just kind of make sure
where the party
everyone's on
leader
the same
is
page.
kind of meeting with the other team and setting strategy and kind of reaching out and doing those things. The whip is doing a lot more internal work to make sure that they're representing, but also that the party is staying in line with what the party represents.
Okay.
So their job is to like really get the party aligned on legislation, on language, and understanding. So when we had and I was asking, Rep Seinenberg if they have a bit of a connection as far as like outside of this committee, and just talking a bit more about that. But it was interesting because again, a lot of people have pointed out that Danny Isaacson, the minority whip, is in a place to step into the party leadership. And so you could go from being the whip to being the one that kind of sets policy and does that. And what we were talking about with Seinenberg today is that not a few people have mentioned that if the Democrats are willing to step up for states' rights through cannabis and like protect the will of the voters and protect the decrim and protect some of these things, that it's kind of a cakewalk for them to take back, the House or the Senate or even the governor's mansion in the state.
Yeah, because I mean, I started following Danny Isaacson on Instagram semi-recently because of the first...
Me too.
On House Bill 160 when we
Never been one to follow up politicians much before. Even as somebody who likes politics, following politicians is not normally my prerogative on social media.
Yeah, I get it. And I'll also say, if you look at their follower count, like when we have people that have like 2,000, 3,000 followers, and the majority of us are from Ohio, they see that.
They start making up, that's large parts of the community. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
They're like, oh shit, wait a minute, and I see this guy actually has people in common. This guy knows people in my district. Oh shit.
Me and Danny did the sharing each other on our stories, and I just, nothing crazy, but my Instagram is EBTHC, so the fact that he was willing to share something on it from a page that is EBTHC in his profile is very clear that the party whip is saying that, like, yeah, THC is part of our thing. We protect it like any other part of our party line. Yeah. So,
and it's... The thing that I really like about these two guys is they're actually listening to their constituents. Like, before House Bill, didn't you reach out to, like, literally every single member of it? Not just the committee, but, like, every single...
Well, no, so just every member of the committee. I started with... Okay. Yeah, I was watching, I was trying to do some clips on the, for my page, and so I was just watching, and after the second time watching Stuart and some of these other people say some of this stuff, I just started getting mad. So as I'm sitting there watching them talk, it was kind of like I could talk back to them, right? I was calling their reps and
600 joints in 6 days, and how many joints can you grow on your plant?
Or like when they would be asked questions and they say, "I'm not familiar with that. I have to look further into that." And when I confront that man, Steve Huffman, in the hallways of the State House, our house. and ask him about that. He says he doesn't plan to answer those questions publicly. He's a man of his word, apparently, because he hasn't said any word since then. He actually he's hid from us. He came into the building for my testimony, into the room, and then asked for an escort out from some rangers. So, you know, like, we're scaring him. We're making a difference in this community, and we're making it in, like Rodney said, it's a coalition.
He doesn't have any reason to be physically scared of any of us.
No, dude.
Like,
I don't hurt people.
Now,
man.
from a debate standpoint, he has all the reasons.
Well, a friend asked why
is
he
it
would...
Huffman or is it Stewart that's a doctor?
Huffman. He's an ER doctor, and that's what baffles me the most, is he's a guy that's supposed to save people.
Do you know that in med school there is nothing about the endocannabinoid system required in the
Well, it makes sense why our doctors never talk to us about it.
Because that's extra that they have.
Why don't we talk about it in biology? All mammals have it.
It's not just, dude, it's everywhere. I thought that, like, a lot of bugs have it.
Well, I was saying, and in between plants having mycelium and, like, the body having the endocannabinoid system, it's like it's literally this little intertwined system between most living things. It's crazy. But back to the point, bringing it back to the State House and stuff. Yeah. Obviously, we're here. We could talk about a lot of fun stuff today, but the State House, as we're saying these names, you can tell that we're clearly both paying more attention to the State House than we ever wanted to.
And I've never have. I've never been like I usually look at a politician on both left and right and independent pretty much while I'm at the ballot box, and I'm Googling all of their names, and I'm looking to see what their points are. If it's a presidential year, I'm usually getting rushed. I'm like, you guys legally aren't allowed to do that. Screw you. Leave me alone. Yep. You're not allowed to take... Yes, I'm allowed to take my time. I'm allowed to... If I want to sit here for an hour and look at these things and go back and forth on
all kinds of voter
something,
intimidation, like subliminal voter intimidation and stuff. Conversely, I went to school for political science, as we said, and, you know, I've always been interested in this stuff, but kind of went through some depression and some other stuff after I graduated, realizing that, you know, I wasn't going to land all the jobs. But when I was in Florida, I interned with my congresswoman on the national level. I was helping run some events for the Jane Castor, the mayor that got elected while I was down there. And so I was working on a nonprofit, so I was trying to be busy, and I was busy, and I was in my community, but that wasn't my community. It was the community that I was a part of at the time. And so coming back to Ohio, it's taken a little time, but now I have found my community. So using all of the skills like I had that I was trained for classically with that stuff, now it's different when I actually am supported by my community and am involved in my community and appreciate my community in the way they appreciate me, because I'm willing to fight for it on a different level with all those skills. And it's really nice to be able to help people like you and other people willing to get involved, willing to learn. And again, that's why it's called education-based THC, because we all want to learn. That's what we asked for from Sonnenberg a couple different times today. It's if they're gonna propose this, if they're gonna be putting amendments, can the Dems agree on that we need education? If they were going to push a new bill through past what they voted for, education has to be a part of it. We tried to really get that message across to him today. And then also I kind of came at it from more of that angle, and then Rodney was able to speak of a lot of personal angles as well, which I thought was really cool. And to just get to the subject of the bill, from the sounds of it now, they've got 2 voting days left, so they have the next 2 Wednesdays to hold session. After that, they'll go on what's called a recess. They have 8 to 10 weeks of summer recess where they won't be in the State House unless they hold a special session or something like that. So what that means is that we'll have a time for a deep breath, but that's not the time yet. We have 2 weeks
away. So within that 2 weeks, on both of those 2 Wednesdays, could be Tuesday too. That's what's really saying now, is that they might run something through. They might skip hearing more tests.
They might put in a new sub bill to 160 or sub bill. They're changing it so much again because of how much we've done.
They want to pass something. Everything we've done, like you said, definitely will make a difference. All the amendments just from SB 56. I mean, I think you'd agree just as well as I have. It's better than when they started.
Every time they present something, it's gotten better, but like
it's still not good.
We started at a really bad place.
Yeah, we started basically saying that, hey, if you smoke weed in public or pass a joint, or you're hitting a vape pen in your car as a passenger, you're going to jail for mandatory minimums, which is the opposite of
decrim to recrim.
Yes, we decrimmed like 10 years ago, and now they're trying to go back to like criminalization. And it's weird because we were actually talking, like, apparently, like, Huffman was, like, laissez-faire on this stuff.
Yeah, he actually said it in House Bill when he was introducing Senate Bill 56 to the House after it had been voted out of the Senate, he said, listen, I think that we should have deregulation and blah, 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 but first we have to put some rules on it to get there. And so he, in the same breath of saying we should have a fully deregulated cannabis market someday, as a true conservative would, he then said, in like the next breath, he's saying, but first we need to put some guardrails on, and then he talks about recriminalizing, and it's like that's a step backwards for...
So why would we wait till the future to do something when we can just do it right now?
It's especially when we've already done it, and again, it's a step backwards, right? Like right now, it's legal to do a lot of the things we're doing, right?
Because
like
trust me, if it's up to me and it's up to you, he will not be in office.
We'll make sure that people know that he had. That's one of the things. Like there's, like he said earlier about like the fear stuff. Like we're not trying to be threatening people. We're trying to hold people accountable. We've both had to hold each other accountable since we both joined the coalition that we're part of, right? Accountability is one of the things that we're all looking for.
We've had some arguments. We've had some debates.
But we've held each other accountable afterwards. Like,
and
that's what's important. That's what we need from the politicians as well, right? My team that I work with at King City Gardens, I work with some really cool people, and I mess up sometimes, and they hold me accountable, and I hold them accountable, because you don't get better as a community if you don't hold each other accountable, because we all have different things we're better at. So to hold them accountable, though, right now, I'm sorry to cut you, but a call to action as we're kind of getting on this is, as I'm sitting here talking about it, I am really realizing that I think that, you know, Civics Cannabis is probably one of the best people to follow on all of this. His 501c3 is forming, and he's getting that going. But as far as just trying to do right now, before we have that time to take that deep breath, I think that there might not be another testimony, but they're still going to be voting, most likely voting on this either next Tuesday or Wednesday or the week after that. And so our job now is to call, to be loud, to reach out to them on social media, to email them, to let them know that we have, I think me and Rodney will probably put something out in the coalition chat, and I'll probably reach out with Matt with Civics as well, to put some of our core things that we all make a point on, that, like, you brought it up earlier, that the Democrats are, and through Sonnenberg at least, he was asking, what should the Democrats stand firm on within this committee? What are the 5 things? What are the 3 things? He got it as notepad. He was writing this down. He was looking at us, asking if Rodney started going back to the group chat, our open forum where we talk to our community, and we made sure that the people's voices were being heard. Like, it's not just something that you put on your Instagram or Matt or I put on my Instagram and we say, like, we'll make your voices heard. Like, I was sharing a personal story about Dan Cannaman, Dan Del Signore, which Eric Sonnenberg brought up. We didn't bring up. He asked about Dan. He said, what about that? He started asking about his story, and he goes, Dan, and I was like, Dan Cannaman, and he goes,
he recognized
and Eric Sonnenberg goes, oh yeah, Dan Del Signore, and I was like, that was pretty cool. And so I was sharing that story. Meanwhile, Rodney gets his phone out. He's pulling up Instagram on here, and he's scrolling back into our group chat and looking into the messages that you and the coalition have shared. Was like, okay, well, this person made a good point here that such and such. Like, we are literally sharing your voices with these people. So over the next weeks before the 17th and the 18th, and then the 24th and the 25th, it's going to be important to us, to our community, to stand up, to make these calls to, and we don't have to be angry. Like, if you have the Democrats in your district, call them and be very clear about, hey, you guys have been doing great work. These are the last things we need you to hold down on. If you can get these amendments, we'll be okay if you vote through. We know that there's going to be a longer fight, but there is a chance that we can really put a wrench in this. Sonnenberg didn't made it. They've always been underestimating us. We're always underdogs, but we brought 42 people into there. I think that if we continue to be loud, we might be able to hold this up for the next couple of weeks, and if that's the case, then school's out for summer, and we can smoke wherever the fuck we want and be the people that we're supposed to be. And maybe, like, I like that we're all acting very properly right now. We're trying to be. I don't sell my stuff. We talked to the owner of Pierogi Palace. I asked him if I could donate him some of my RSO hard candies, and he was so confused. And I was like, well, that's what's legal in the bill, and that's what I'm willing to do. I have people helping me. I want to help you. And, like, this is all about a community coming together and giving where other people don't have resources. But we all have right now is we can reach out to those Democrats and say, hey, thank you for what you've done so far. We can reach out to Jamie Callender. We can reach out to Odioso. We can reach out
those
to...
are all Republicans. And
we can reach out to these other people on there that have, like, even Williams. Williams seems confused sometimes about legality of stuff. I think if he understood...
He brought up a good point during the one testimony
about the Supreme Court. Yes,
there's a Supreme Court ruling that made, like, part of the legislative text of the issue to...
I cited that in my testimony for the most recent sub-bill.
But the issue that I'm seeing with it is what they're doing is they're completely tearing all of that apart rather than facilitating it and making it a way to where it's like, all right, maybe we should strike out that specific language from just this part that makes it unfeasible in law, and then maybe try and find a way to where we
both not mention economic rather than social equity, economic equity. You brought up low income areas. I brought up unemployment. I mean, incarceration rate. There's a million different ways you can do this. Rep. Williams made a good point. This is basically saying race in another way. I mean, that was his point, not my point. I wouldn't make that argument personally, but that's what he and the Supreme Court have said is the precedent right now. Yeah. So he made a good point. I thanked him for that in my testimony. But you know what? Just like a lot of the other guys, when I'm ready to speak up and I'm in there, they're not showing up in the State House. They're not in the room when I'm speaking to them. No wonder that when I'm talking about these things and asking for the third time, they act like it's the first time. So, again, it's all about accountability. And I think that it's important that we do that. I think that's important that we learn to hold each other accountable and hold these people accountable, but also thank the politicians, like we've talked about, the names of these people who have done the proper work and should be recognized for such.
And I will say, Callender has done a lot for us.
He did promise me he's going to smoke with me someday.
I'm sure
that was cool.
I mean, he's cool enough. He might. Maybe when he's out of office, just because
he's been there for a couple of years.
He's been fighting for us on this front, especially from a Republican standpoint, more than anyone. Odioso, like you can say that we've. And I want to talk on that a little bit more, but I can say that I feel like Odioso is kind of coming to our side. He's new and he's receptive.
Well, he won't vote on anything that doesn't have the community. That's what Sonnenberg said.
And that's because I had that conversation with him.
Yep.
I was pointing out to him, I'm like, yo, like that's one really big thing, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who said that to him. I'm sure there's many municipalities that are pissed off within his district, because if you guys don't know what they're doing, is one of the things they were doing in the first bill was taking all the money from that was supposed to be given to the local municipalities that hold up the dispensaries and everything else. They were supposed to get a certain amount of that tax revenue, but now they're trying to change it so that way they would not get it.
And that's the problem, is that we've had this program for a year, and
there's $20 million sitting there in that fund
in the Department of Taxation. Yep.
That is untouched. That could be used to help build schools. That could be used to fund the libraries that they're currently looking to defund in the general revenue.
And that's what Eric Sonnenberg brought up, is that the House has been failing his local communities since the budget since 2011, when like the localities part of the state budget has been slashed.
Yeah. And
so this was a way for, I mean, that's why a lot of these local leaders fought for issue 2, because it was a way to get, so 10% of the 10% tax, 33% of that 10% on adult use consumers, not medical patients, but only these new adult use consumers, that would be used for a local, and it was very frustrating when Stewart not only claimed that the voters didn't know what they were voting for, but then tries to make it sound like this fund is for communities to take care of like the extra criminals, the extra tickets, or these other things, because he said in most of these municipalities, we don't see the crime rate going up. We don't see more traffic citations. We actually see the opposite. So he's admitting that these communities are safer, while using that as justification for the fact that they don't need the money. But it's not about, we know that cannabis makes the community safer, but not only should it make the community safer, but if you're paying for it through a regulated dispensary that has a 10% tax, 33% of that tax should go and help, like you said, fix the bridge, or put in a new park, or help the light. Like that's the whole point, right? And like he said, it's not that like they're trying to, they are trying to change it, but they've also been withholding it this whole time too, which I find just as frustrating.
Just sitting there, like I said, it's $20
Some of these localities have it in their budgets to have that money. They've accounted for it in their budget.
And now they're under. Now they've screwed their entire budget up for the entire year. To
they
where
talk
now
about
they're
wanting to protect
debt.
the children. What about this? Like the money that it's crazy,
dude. It's mind blowing. Some of the stuff that's going on, some of the legislative, like, yeah, I'm glad that they're amending it, but this, like you said from the get go, like this started off terribly.
I feel bad. I'm glad that we get to connect with these people time and again. I mean, in my testimony, I mentioned a heated discussion with Callan. That's because he was asking me once the second testimony when about like our numbers were increasing, right? They saw us the second time, and he kind of addresses us all in the room and tries to make this grand gesture. And I just
where he thanked us, and
but then,
what we do,
and asked us for amendments, and I find the idea of representatives asking us for amendments honestly insulting, and the reason I say that is because we pay them to be our legislature, and their job is, like legislators, their job is to represent us, right? And like Seidenberg told us today,
but
they don't even write.
Why it would be good that they are asking us for what amendments we would ask for?
So if they were asking, So the point of a testimony is to tell a committee, this is my personal testimony and why this affects us and why this is happening. So then the job of a representative is then to go and represent you within that committee, have a discussion, draft those amendments, and then actually reach out to the Legislative Review Committee and tell the Legislative Review Council, hey, this is what the committee suggests the language represent. And then another group of people that the taxpayers pay for is then supposed to write that new language. So the idea that we should be writing the amendments is kind of offensive to me because we've paid for them twice already. And we've now testified, we've taken time out of work or our lives to go testify and tell them this is what we need, this is how we need it, this is what's wrong. Their job is then to listen to that feedback and do those things. I'm not saying that personally from calendar it's offensive. I'm saying that the idea that we should be doing that, this is just changing the paradigm of this.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, thank you for letting me explain that, because it's just, like you said, you're not newer to politics. Politics has been affecting us our whole life, but some of us are newer to the process.
Yes. Like, you've got an in-depth, behind-closed-doors knowledge that someone like me and a lot of others don't know. So, like just like the whip thing, it's like, I've never even heard that term.
Yeah.
When I hear that term, I'm like, you mean like the whipping boy?
Yeah.
Like,
the whipping post,
fucking, like,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so, like, but I mean, that's just how politics is there's so much to it, and I mean, it's not like...
Public servants is what another term
that's
for
what
them.
it's supposed to be.
Public servants and peace officers, not politicians and police.
And I'll be honest, man, I'm at a point where I think it's because of the fact that the state guys actually kind of reaching out to us, getting back to us, like...
It's inspiring.
I think I'm almost done trying to even pay attention to the national scale at all because I'm just so over it. It's so toxic.
It's funny.
So,
I couldn't agree more.
I got into it originally because, like, dude, I grew up on South Park. Like, so when I'm watching Trump give this stupid speech about the walls and stuff, and he's saying, like, walls worked in Israel, walls worked in Iraq, walls worked in Berlin, walls worked in China. I'm like, bro, first off, did you watch Mulan? Second off, the reason walls worked in Berlin is because if you crossed it only the one way, they killed you. It wasn't the wall that worked. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, I find the humor in a lot of it, but it's when I see things like this that become so, like, I can't distance myself enough away from it.
Philip DeFranco is a YouTuber I watch, and one of my favorite phrases that he has in some of his shirts, and it says, you may not fuck with politics, but politics will always fuck with you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing, like, people like to say, oh, let's not talk politics, let's not talk this, let's not talk that, but, like, politics, like, that's why I feel so lucky to have studied political science, because politics is just how you interact with your community.
So, let me ask you this question, because I feel like this is a question that I've heard a bunch of times where, it's like a chicken and the egg situation with community and what the community wants or society wants versus policy. Yeah. Which one comes first?
Okay, yeah.
Does policy dictate community or society, or does society dictate policy?
So that's
which one is it supposed to be? Which one is it actually? And you know what I mean?
I feel like you've asked me, like, I'm taking me back. No, I just feel like you're taking me back to, like, my political theory 3,000 or 4,000 level classes where, like, you learn about realpolitik and you learn about, like, just the different representation models and about this, and you learn about the Magna Carta when we stopped having, like, castles and feudal systems and actually started having, like, representation in different ways. And I mean, then you can go back to the Greco-Roman system where there's, like, a different type of democracy where we actually have a democratic republic, and then at this point we're probably more of a oligarchy, which, again, so where we are at right now, we are in an oligarchy and we have autocrats ruling. So what that means is that,
basically,
like, people
rich
with
guys,
people with money,
a few of them have it,
and so they are setting
everything.
policy.
And that's
so they are through their money, through their corporations, through their lobbying agencies, through these politicians. They are setting policy which controls the community. The idea of a democratic republic, of, you know, the Boston Tea Party, no taxation without representation, was that community bands together, elects their representatives, and those representatives set policy to enact what the community is demanding. So it's like, there is two answers. It's like, what is it supposed to be, and what do we experience?
Which is what I was like, I know I have to ask.
What is the Constitution?
So
what
it's
is
supposed to be community and society dictate policy, but what it feels like is policy is dictating. because of the fact
because we
that
don't have our voice, because we don't have, on a national scale, we don't have a way to hold politicians accountable.
No, not since they did the super PAC thing.
Yeah,
because now ever since super PACs are legal,
Citizens United is the court case that really
Yes.
enabled all of that, and like it's been, there's been a lot of things that have made, like the military-industrial congressional complex. So that happened at, a lot of people hear the military-industrial complex is what most people hear, but the full phrase that was said at the end of World War II was to beware of the military-industrial congressional complex. And that, again, we all know it's very easy to see the military and industry and how those go two and two, and how we've been in war for most of all of our adult lives, for most people we know.
and we all know what happened to the guy.
But who funds that? It's Congress, right? And so, like, there's always been ways for money to move around and to control these things. But the super PACs, the Citizens United, allowed for corporate personhood, which would allow for unlimited money to go to nonprofit organizations, which then can spend unlimited money on politicians. And then, if you're smart enough or savvy enough, you don't have to report. Like, you can use those different organizations to change the OpenSecrets.org is a good website for everybody to check out. Gerald Moore of Ohio Cannabis Report is a big proponent of that. He has some stuff on his website, on his stuff, to teach people how to use that. That's probably something I'll put on eventually on my stuff.
Which is also how we know that Huffman is actually just really paid by the healthcare companies. Which is
to take that comment back earlier, right? Like, I understand that he is a ER doctor, and I won't question the man's ability to fulfill the Hippocratic Oath when he's in hospitals. That's not my place to do so. I don't have the right to do so. But what I do have the right to do is to hold him accountable for his actions within the State House. And like you said, and when 70% of his funding comes from the healthcare industry, as we were just talking about with Eric Seidenberg, cannabis is true healthcare because it is a regulatory agent. It's anti-inflammatory. It does these things that help the human body. But
the reason that the
sick
healthcare
care industry
the reason the healthcare industry doesn't like cannabis is because of the way that they cannot monetize it the same way that they can.
It also keeps you healthier but not needing other things.
Yes. So a lot of medicine's based off of plant medicine. So the thing is like, let's say lavender is great for anxiety and sleep, but I can't necessarily like just take that lavender and monetize it and make it sure that I'm the only guy who can sell lavender, because it's something that's out there and already growing. So what they do is they take that, they change like one molecule off, and like then they can take that molecule that they've then made synthetically, and then they can patent it and sell it at whatever price point they want for an extended period of time, until eventually a generic option is eventually able to be made, and then you have a little bit more competition. But even then, the generic stuff still, like, why not have the original plant medicine that was the first thing? Why can't we have both?
Sitting around a bonfire with some friends last night that have been supportive through this whole thing, that have shown up at different testimonies, and this woman, Ebony Hempress, on Instagram, she's awesome. She's part of Ohio TV, which is a cannabis forward media empire that's launching right now, multimedia company, which is really cool. But
It's cool.
she was talking a lot about, she's seeing me like fight for something really hard, for something that I really care about. And so we were enjoying ourselves on the campfire, enjoying the magic of cannabis and plant medicine, and out with no lights on, looking up at the stars, not listening to music, and enjoying that stuff. And so you get to those deeper level questions when you have cannabis, and she got it kind of
definitely started asking some real weird deep shit, like, man, what do you think that fucking star is?
Dude,
Could you imagine the conversations fucking like way back when? That's probably why we started looking at the stars.
That's my favorite thing, is we actually made astrology understandable to a friend last night, because we were looking up and I pointed out the Big Dipper, we pointed out Sagittarius, we pointed out a couple different constellations, because my friend lives out where there's no light pollution, so you can really see the stars. And so we were pointing at it, and I pointed out Mars, and I think someone else pointed out, I forget which other planet was in the sky last night. It's been a long day already, but they were pointing at it. I forget which point of the night it was as well. We were pointing at it, and we explained that, like, how like astrology works, right? So like when people are talking about your birth chart and stuff like that, what they really mean is that, like, you're looking up at the skies, and like Sagittarius, the Big Dipper is here. Well, where was Jupiter in the sky when you were born? Well, how do you determine that? There's not like a section gradient of the sky. The sky is determined by where the constellations are, and that's cool, because the first stories, like, imagine again, like you said, the first stories of like when humans are first developing consciousness, laying down at night, looking up at the stars and making stories out of these things. And then from there, cartography, an entire part of like our society, to use your word earlier, our society's history was made. People could travel because the stars were at a consistent spot in the sky throughout each and every year.
You always knew the North Star was north.
Yeah, so we were staring at the stars. We were talking about that. We were having those conversations, and she was, staring at the fire, and we're talking about as above, so below, and she was just talking about plant medicine and holistic healing and these kind of things, and it's just so interesting to hear you talk about that because, I'm for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm truly fighting for something that I believe in with my whole heart, right? Not just working for a job or stuff like that, but so she was kind of sharing that, and she's like, I want to have a place where we have healing centers, not just, cannabis forward, but true spiritual healing centers with massage and Reiki and cannabis and access to other. We're talking about decriminalized psilocybin stuff with Sonnenberg earlier.
Sonnenberg literally asked us about ibogaine therapy.
That was crazy. Yeah.
It was at the very end. But he's like, have you heard about this thing, like this ibogaine thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's long-acting DMT. Yes, that's the strongest psychoactive. Like, cannabis is like the equivalent of like maybe tea. And then you get mushrooms, which is more like pop. And then you get like acid, which is like an energy drink.
Yeah.
And then you get DMT, and that's like a full-blown shotgun blast of like, PASHOW in your face!
Yeah.
And then you get that for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's why he's like, I heard it's really good. It's like super effective. And I'm like, yeah, but the biggest thing is you got to have a shaman there. You have to do it right.
Exactly.
Because if you don't do it right, you're just going to have a bad trip.
And we're just not ready for that kind of conversation on like a state level, a national level. But it's cool to see that these conversations are happening with state reps. Like obviously, this guy wasn't asking us if he should take it or if he where to get shrooms.
Like, he's like, have you ever heard of it?
Genuinely like interested in alternative therapy, and he was not only. Someone brought it up to him, but he's what's impressed me most about him and Isaacson is that when they ask a question, Jim Thomas always asks them follow-up question, and they almost always have follow-up questions. I don't see that as much from everybody on there, but particularly Seidenberg and Isaacson. Yeah,
specifically when we were giving testimony, like those two specifically, like they were the only ones really asking questions. Like Tim's, I think with Ronnie from. Shout out to Sohio Boys.
Yeah.
When Rodney was giving his testimony and he was explaining how, like, he's a veteran and he's got all these other veteran friends and, like, he has so many people that he just literally just gives tons of cannabis to in any shape, form, or fashion. And she was asking him, like, well, do you think there should be a limit on how much you should be allowed to gift? Which, I will also say, if they do try and change something, just so you know, it is technically illegal to gift more than 2.5 ounces. So, issue 2, again, is a good bill. Issue 2 is a fucking middle-of-the-road bill. I'm sorry to swear, but, like, dude, it is... When we started getting into this, between HB 160 and 56, I started really looking at all the other states. I used Normal's website, and I kind of was, like, comparing, contrasting, like... Issue 2 is middle of the road.
Issue 2, I feel like, was really, and that's why I think so. Now's a good time as any. So I started collecting signatures recently because at the most recent.
Oh, you already got one.
Yeah. So at the most recent testimony, someone spoke up about someone who has a rather diverse investment portfolio that has a lot of finances involved. Investment groups across the state spoke up and gave a testimony and spoke up to these people and was rather irate that they're affecting his ability to make money in this state, to say the least.
Yes.
And he, I don't want to say threatened, but he made it clear that he was willing to fund a constitutional amendment. And one of the main reasons that's always been a problem in this state is because there's no profit in making a constitutional amendment because you have to make it equitable for enough that 60% of this state is going to vote on it. So you can't make carve-outs for small parties. You can't ostracize anybody.
Ohio is known or has been known as a swing state, which people have made the argument recently that Ohio's been very red, so it's not really so much of a swing state. But yes, Ohio is a swing state, dude. Ohio is one of the biggest and most important swing states because we have an extremely, we have Cleveland, we have Columbus, we have Cincinnati, we have Dayton, somewhere over here. But outside of that, it's the sticks, bro. You're in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere. Yeah. Like, you see corn, soybeans, and hay. And that's what we got. And then we got Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. So we still got like very blue districts, but we have very red districts, and the red districts aren't the same type of red when you think of the guys that are actually in office. They're the type of guys that they're farmers.
Talk about swing state. Could you imagine we were just talking to Seinenberg about what the state would look like if the blue part of the state was suddenly the one that is protecting agriculture, that's bringing them the medical program into the Department of Agriculture, that's bringing in the hemp stuff into the Department of Agriculture, that protects the medical program, that stands up for voters' rights, that the Democrats are the party in Ohio fighting for a smaller government. And then not only that, but they reach out to Meigs County and Athens County. Like we were talking about.
And actually listening to their constituents and working with them.
Well, you were just talking about, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincy, Dayton, and all, then the lovely, that our three here with Dayton kind of popping off to the side here. But Athens and Meigs County are the poorest financially counties in this state, but they have some of the richest in culture and food and people. And if the Democrats truly reach out to them and protect the hemp industry, protect the cannabis industry, not only would that part of the state turn blue, but imagine what that means at the state level in Ohio, which then I couldn't agree with you more.
Down in the comments below, let me know. Did you guys know we have the Cannabis Museum here in Ohio? Yeah. It's in Athens.
Yep. I mean, Athens County, Meigs County supplied the rock and roll, the Midwest rock and roll scene for the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. We talk about that all the time. Dumpster, Death Star, G13, some of these I
think Lemon G.
Lemon G is another one that you hear a lot. That's one I've
met some of these guys, dude.
I
know some of the guys that are starting.
That's what's crazy is meeting these people out of these events and stuff. Go for it.
Appalachian Girls. Those are real OGs.
Yes.
Those guys have clones that are a lot of those things we were just talking about. They've held 600. If you go back and watch that episode with them, I know we didn't have the mics at that point, so it's a little bit harder. But dude, they deep dived into a lot of that shit. The dude with the dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Fucking genetic master.
I went down to the farmers market in Frazeysburg, Ohio Cannabis Farmers Market in Frazeysburg, and there was a guy there, Interstellar Genetics, he was donating, Death Star and Dumpster. And, you had to buy $50 for these little plastic keychains he had, but he was donating some plants, which I thought was a really cool thing that he was doing. But I was a little nervous about doing that because we know how many people will give you a free Dumpster, free Death Star, and that it's
and it's not
my buddy has the original cut to his garage from this long, and it's there's always those stories, but when you're at a place like a farmer's market, it turns out that accountability, that word we keep coming back to, it turns out that your neighbors have to hold you accountable, and if there's a guy inside that's got Dumpster and Death Star and G13, and then the guys outside are they're going to let you know if that guy's if he's bullshitting, if his weed's not the true stuff.
Because they're going to ask him, where'd you get your cut from?
So I asked him, and then I walked in. I saw his
if
stuff. I walked out to Rodney. We were just talking about him. So Ohio Boys asked him, I said, what do you think of this guy? He said, I've traded genetics with him before. I went over to Professor Blunt's stash. I've traded genetics with. So you ask people, and it's the people have a reputable reputation. And I was that matters to me. Your people have already held you accountable. I can now trust you to then do that, right? So I'm really excited. I got those outdoor and an outdoor build I'm doing, which there'll be a lot of stuff about that coming out on my website soon. Just reached out to a photographer friend of mine. I've got over 2,000 pictures of my grows over the last 2 years. I'm gonna get those up in little diary grows and catalog them and stuff, so people, because I fucked up a lot of my first grows, right? And so I want to have, but what's cool is that I don't know if you've gone back through how many pictures you took, but one of my favorite things that I'm getting to do now is to go back through those grows and actually see where I fucked up but didn't see it yet. But I can put a big red circle and tell you guys where to pay attention to that, right? So that's one of my favorite things. I'm really excited to do stuff like that.
And I can say this much, just like we fucked up our first couple of grows, even though I had a little bit of experience from the metric industry. Trust me, the metric industry is growing on scale, and they fuck up hard. I have seen herms this big. I've seen powdery mildew all across a room to the point
I'd love to dive into that, because that's one of the favorite reasons. I'm not here to do a plug for KCG. I'm not gonna. They pay me a salary to do my community outreach stuff, but it's 6 p.m. and I'm taking dabs and hanging here with Rodney, so I'm not here to plug them for any reason other than the fact that they have fucked up a lot, right? I've actually gotten a lot of customers by looking at them and saying yeah, man, we're a couple of investors that have bought an old Kmart and have trying things that nobody else has. And I was like, that's who's going to mess up the most, is when you're trying things other people have and you're trying to be innovative, right? And we've fallen on our face a couple times. We've also had some really cool new things. We brought O2 into this market, like information entropy, and some of these places and other markets have.
They're stuck in the O2 hardware for vapes.
Yes.
That like the industry standard. If you actually are a heady boy or actually give a shit about what you're smoking, you're probably going to be using an O2 vape.
We have 3 different products from them. Their O2 Nano Traveler, their O2 510s, and their O2 rosin, like ceramic rosin. All ceramic and glass for us. I really, really appreciate their stuff. But again, we're able to do things like that. But they've messed up. But every time they've messed up, they've learned from that. Just like I was talking about. Not only that, but they continue to bring in more stoners, to bring in more people that are of the culture, and like that's inspiring.
The people that they have working in their hash lab,
those are Ohio people, man.
Are 2 of the biggest underground names that I'm not going to say, but I will say at least one of them I know for sure competed at Resin Rivals.
I mean,
you know who I'm talking about.
And there's
like,
and to be stuff that's all easy to say is that Daxtraction Labs is a real company that builds rosin presses that are sold legally in this country, because those are legal things to build.
Longer than most.
And he is now working with Canison, who's processing all of our King City flower right now. So it's cool to see things like that happen, right? And Canison has always had a standard that they don't want to process remediated flower. They don't want to process anything that wasn't flash frozen or full buds, right? And that's hard to stay around that long. Now, I'm not saying that's always been the standards they upheld, but that's what they've always wanted to do. And as an Ohio-only processor,
I can almost guarantee the reason they probably had standards like that is because they had, if you guys know who TNT Extracts is, he was there previously too. So
okay,
he's a lot of us get industry burnout for a various number of reasons.
Because there's not like employer protections or patient protection. Sorry.
Bro, I've had people get their whole account shut down. Huntington account? Huntington? Fuck you! Like,
yeah, man.
When I was working at Buckeye Relief, they literally, shout out to the Amish, because the Amish ended up they have a bank in like Middlefield banking
they probably don't
system.
give a shit if you grow
No,
weed.
they're cool. They're cool. They don't give a shit. So they had them come in and offer all of us accounts to like work with them because of the fact that Huntington was literally, they shut down like 20 employees' accounts like that overnight. Once they found out that Buckeye Relief LLC is actually a legal medical cannabis company, they were like, no, you guys can't. We're not doing that.
It's unbelievable, man.
That's also, there's a whole plethora of, but
so speaking on accountability, right? So like I said, I could return back to that work and bring us back to it. We'll get right to this in just a moment. But the last thing I wanted to say on that, because we've talked about remediation, we've talked about this. I think both of us are the kind of people that understand and appreciate the importance of full spectrum cannabis, right?
Yes.
The plant is amazing. We all, no matter what somebody likes with whether it's edibles or dabs or this or that, when it comes around to it, when a joint's getting passed around to some really good flower, we're all going to take a puff of that thing, right? And you're going to take that little extra inhale, that full spectrum. Not much beats it. I mean, RSO is awesome, and there's things out there, but the reason that I continue to work at King City Gardens, among a few other things, but the guiding thing for me is that, they've dropped their prices 3 times since I worked there, but on top of that, the grow facility, we don't own remediation tech. Yep. We had an issue where we had moldy aroma in some of our buds. Some people returned some moldy cannabis and mildew aroma, but
I think it was a jar thing, wasn't it? And then you guys
we're partnered with Grow Bags in Cleveland now.
So that, again, like
we have the craziest deep clean process, but what we don't have is we don't own a remediation machine still. And
you don't want to invest $500,000 into a rat source X-ray machine
does not
blast your weed with X-rays and radiate your weed to try and make it
not labeled on the
weed.
Jar for the consumers.
By the way, if you guys didn't know, most operators in the legal industry do that.
The problem is that most of them aren't remediating most of their weed, but they have that expensive machine on site. And if you have a $500,000 to $1 million machine on site to take care of something, well, if you have moldy weed, you're not going to throw that away and get rid of it. You're going to remediate it and sell it because you invested the money to buy that machine. Most of us consumers just want a label.
Some companies will blast all their stuff
because
that's not.
I didn't want to believe that, but
it sucks, dude. It hurts so bad to hear. But it's because of the fact of like, so all right, a test is $500.
Yeah,
a $500 for 15 pounds at your maximum. So that means that's $500 extra that you have to get for 15 pounds. So it doesn't sound like a lot to us, but to these guys, they're looking at it as, well, I've got overhead, I've got
plant's
people
only there
to
for
pay,
profit, dude.
like, and that's exactly they're looking at it as just like bottom
Balance
line
sheet.
and trying to make that as much as they can. They look at it as, well, if I don't sell it, I don't make anything, and then I'm in the negative by far. But if I remediate it and I sell it, I'm still making money on it.
Yep. And so that's why that's so important to me. And as a home grower, we know that I think something that I say a lot when I'm educating people in these dispensaries is something that Rodney said to Representative Seidenberg while he was educating him today. He was talking about the remediation thing. And what Rodney said at a point where, I say this all the time, so it's very validating to hear you say that, where when you have mold on cannabis, you can see it. You can break open a bud, be like, oh, this smells kind of funny, and you break it open, and it's got like a spiderweb mold mildew on there. Like, it's the human body recognizes things that aren't safe to it, like natural things that aren't safe to it. We smell something that's going to make us sick, we want to get like. So we're going to be most of the time, if you're breaking that down by hand, grinding it up, you're doing this. You're spending a little bit of time with your flower, which is one of my favorite parts. You're going to notice it.
And you'll smell it.
Now, unless you're somebody like me
sneezing.
and Rodney, who have had the chance to be in as many cultivation sites as we had, and grown as much cannabis as we have, and just been able to have the very privilege and luxury of playing with as much weed as we have, and handling packages in metric tagged facilities and through dispensaries, you can very easily start to notice when cannabis has been synthetically dried out, which is what I like to call remediation.
So
And
a lot of people will.
But you guys
overdrive
might
their
not
stuff.
be able to do that. And if there's not a label on that jar, is it okay for our consumers to be smoking cannabis that has been hit with a rad source, that has been blasted with this spray? Like, that's where my concern comes from.
So, I'll also be honest. I feel like they should be allowed to have that. They should be allowed to do that. If they want to do that and they want to nuke their brand, literally nuke their brand, that's fine.
Nuke the mic,
But
baby.
like you said, it should be required to be labeled. I think the DCC said that they were going to do something about it, but I haven't actually seen it.
Fingers crossed, man. And
Like-
it's not because I work for King City that I want that to happen. I work for King City because they don't remediate. And just
But the reason you want it is because you care about the consumer, the end consumer. You care about the patient.
I care
and
about
that's-
myself selfishly too. I want to buy
Yeah.
bud that I know hasn't been hit in a microwave, man.
Bro, you don't even know. All right, so like, I know certain companies for sure remediate. I know in Metric, you're supposed to
On the
check a
CLA,
box that says
CLA.
remediated. And I know people that have told me that this flower here is remediated. And then I go to the dispensary, and I know certain managers that aren't supposed to tell me this information, but they'll tell me that it does not say marked as remediated.
And then the other side of that for me personally, there's this color remediation, which is a whole nother similar subject. But
That's
for
the
me,
CRC.
Yep, CRC. And then the thing for me is distillation technology. I understand that for companies that profit is the main focus, distillation is needed to take pure or high quality THC out of. Here's the thing, man. Like, I don't know what high quality THC means, because THC Delta 9 is a simple compound.
It's a molecule.
As
long as it's not
what
synthetic,
high
right?
quality cannabis is something that has terpenes, cannabinoids, flavorants, and all kinds of like chlorophyll that's dried out, like a complex that has all of these different things. And when you then make that into a resin or rosin, like BHO, a lot of people have opinions on solvent versus solventless, but regardless, those are both concentrating the cannabis into taking out some of the like fats, lipids, chlorophyll, and those things, and keeping the cannabinoids, the terpenes, the THC, which is the cannabinoid, and a couple of those other more important compounds. But distillation is all about isolating that down to a molecule. And to bring it back to your subject earlier about the pharmaceutical stuff, I loved how clearly you talked about that, because that's what my main concern is with companies that use so much distillation. Because if you want a pharmaceutical experience, go to the traditional pharmaceutical industry. This is cannabis. We like the full spectrum. We like the plant. If we have our concentrate, I want the whole plant concentrated into a good form. When we get into distillation, you're taking away a lot of the balance that regulates the endocannabinoid system, that regulates the olfactory system, and then you mechanically assemble it with other terpenes and things. That's a personal thing. So I'd love to hear your opinion.
So I know what you mean. Personally, like, but my argument would be is I feel like there's a way that you could do that and it would be okay. Let's say, for example, here's something that one of my qualms about the industry, but at the same time, like, I really wish they would do this properly, because there's a way to do this properly that would be education based, that wouldn't be so much of a marketing scheme that they do. And this isn't just one company. If you look on Future 4200, this is something that it's open source information, a lot of cannabis extraction stuff. Cold crashing. So what a lot of people will do was they'll take their slurry out of the machine, butane extract them, and then cold crash it, get just their isolate. And then you have your terps mechanically separated from your terps and your THCA, which, I mean, there's a plethora of reasons why you could do that, which would be my argument, is that, like, let's say maybe I want something that's lower THC or higher THC, or maybe I want different variations of doses, or maybe I want to mix my terpenes with other terpenes, which I can do all of that after I separate it out, and then I can, like...
Is that not isolate, though? And not
that's isolate, and then you
Okay.
take the isolate, and this is where I was getting with the marketing issue. So, have you ever heard the term liquid diamonds? Do you know what liquid diamonds is?
So our company has a liquid diamond series right now, and this is a very fun topic of conversation, because there's science to some of it and marketing to some of it. So please tell me.
So I don't know what you guys do with your liquid diamonds, but most people, when they market liquid diamonds, I know Jeter does this for sure. I have a plethora of issues with Jeter, but that's beside the point. Liquid diamonds is literally, more often than not, they cold crash, they take that THCA and they distill it. They run it through a distillation machine.
So unfortunately, so that's not what. So again,
Or even they'll say that they'll, like, well, no, we're just heating it and decarbing it and stuff. But
so
you're pulling off your heads, you're pulling off your tails, you're distilling.
Canis and they don't own the distillation tech, right? And so that's what I've said. So even with so I'm glad you say that, right? Because
but even if you take it and you take that THCA and you heat it up with a stir bar and a thing, even if you're not pulling off your heads and tails, you're still, because you already mechanically separated, isn't that, like, pretty much distillate anyway?
So the thing is with distillate is that you're burning off a lot of that stuff, and then so I'll explain part of the process with this. So like the liquid diamonds we use, we're doing a BHO process, and then as it cools, we're letting it cool into a liquid and diamond formation, like you said, right? So
Okay.
And then
we put that. Are you mason jar crashing it? Do you see a bunch of mason jars?
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
so that's old school type.
Yes,
Yeah,
and then we're putting that into just a heat bath, like where we've got a bunch of small stones that heat that up and then liquefy that. And then to that we are then so this is for...
So even within, when you do that though, I would argue that would be more true to what I would consider like a liquid diamond and make it more, but when you isolate it when you do the old school mason jar tech, your diamonds aren't white, right? They're yellow.
Because there's still because they haven't been separated. We haven't isolated completely.
Okay.
Exactly. So just for further context, we have King City Gardens has the live rosin pins, and then the live resin pins, and the cured resin pins. All of those are strain specific. They have no additives that are literally, I mean, it's as straight as hash rosin and BHO resin as you can get. But the KCG brand is meant to be the mass market brand, right? It's meant to be for the weekend warriors, for the people that need a little bit more discreet action. So we take stuff that if you ran it into a regular BHO or a rosin, it would disappoint the majority of the customers because it doesn't have a high terpene concentration. It probably only had lower THC, so you're concentrating it. But we know what happens when you have a lower one, you concentrate it, the flavor profile just isn't right. So we'll take that. They will do that the old school style, like you were referring to. You'll still see a lot of the sauce within the diamonds, essentially, to keep the terms as basic as possible. And then they'll heat that up in they have these metal balls that will heat that, liquefy that, and then we'll bring in naturally derived botanical terpenes and then a little bit of CBD. And so the idea here for that is that we don't want to start with a distillate and then add in a bunch of different, hemp derived here from that. We're being very clear that this is, we're getting our lavender from liniment. We're trying to be as natural and botanical as possible, and then we use CBD to bring that down to the state level. Now that is in an all glass.
Which the only reason I've got to even add the CBD is because the state has these concentrate caps, which they're also trying to do within these House bills that they don't understand the science of what they're doing, and when they do that, like you guys are doing the smart thing and the respectful thing to the patient.
Trying to get
doing
as
a
live as
CBD.
possible and then bringing it down with CBD.
What a lot of people are doing is they're adding filler terps, which are
Hemp-derived terpenes, cannabis-derived terpenes shipped in from other states.
Even just-
Support Ohio, man.
So filler terps are like odorless, tasteless. They're literally
really?
just like it's a
like-
weirdly it's a
It's like
really
I know, like MCT oil
that
and like
kind of. So there's some people that were doing that, but that was fucking
so
people
vitamin
up.
E was fucking with people.
So
too,
that was
right?
another thing that people were doing in California, which is where the
But didn't
dank
make it
vape
to
scare
Ohio's
came.
market. Oh,
No,
okay.
no, that made it to
Oh.
that made it to the underground. Do you remember the dank vape scare?
Oh yeah.
That was the vitamin E
because
acetate.
they were doing the
So the
because it was
vitamin
the
E
acetate. Yes.
was something that people were using as an additive in the California marketplace. So everyone there just started doing it.
And so
then
that
they
this is
brought
my
up-
point is that like the reason that I'm happy with the company that I work for and the partners that we choose to work
is
with
because you guys aren't adding filler terps and asinine shit. You guys are adding CBD, which is beneficial to your medical system.
Yeah, and again so on the two other with the two other pods we have, it's a live rosin, is a ceramic heater and a glass mouthpiece. The 510 is a ceramic mouthpiece and a ceramic coil. But that liquid diamond one is all glass, and I didn't really understand the importance of that at first until I started to talk to the market more. I found out that people that aren't like me and you don't always love ceramic, because ceramic is really good. It heats up really well.
But it
holds
has a
that
taste.
heat. But it also, what I didn't realize is that it does heat up really well, so it's almost hard not to get bigger clouds on ceramic because it's actually such a good heat retention and a heat
That
holder.
makes sense.
And so on the vapes, some of these like that all glass vape will give you you can have a little bit more control of your hit because
You
it's
need
not
a long and
quartz
slow hit.
and it's not metal, so it's not going to leach the metal into there. It's not going to give you that metally taste, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like because ceramic is porous, so over the time you use ceramic more, it actually starts to absorb the molecules from this stuff, and so when you reheat it, that's what leaks back out. Versus metal, which is not very porous, it actually will leach off metal into the device after an extended use amount of time if you're overheating it. And I'm not saying that it's
You know
make your
what's-
own judgments on that,
Bro,
please.
back in the day, I used to take vapes, and if one would fuck up, I would take it and put it into the old cart. And that was when they had the metal coil. I was like, that could not have been great for my health.
When
But
they
I mean,
still, dude,
I
sorry,
grew up
yeah, a
back
lot
in
of
the
places
day.
still have metal carts, and like, I find it. I'm not going to make any call outs, but for me, like, I don't understand. Just when I came over here, I was a little surprised. I thought the titanium bucket, but it's because he had the titanium nail, but that's because you have a quartz bucket on top.
Shout out mini email.
And like, it just surprises me that like, I guess it doesn't, because sometimes companies, you know what, I don't want to make judgments on them.
No,
I am just personally surprised when companies make live rosin or hash rosin and put it in a device, and then the device has metal. Like I understand that it's still
Because-
safe and okay.
So a lot of owners within the industry don't smoke.
Our owners don't, but they know the importance of having people that do and listening to them.
That makes a big difference too. So the other issue that I've seen is the
okay.
people that I had seen smoked used to smoke way back in the day, and they
When
look at
standards
all
are-
their stuff and go, everything here is amazing, and it's like, no, some of those are C's. There's one A right over there.
Okay,
You've got like
yeah.
an F. Like, you got like a wall of F's over here, bro. Like, that all smells like mold. You should just throw
Yeah.
that whole thing out, but no. Whatever.
So, one more thing, and then we'll kind of switch back to this stuff here.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me talk about, like, and this is fun because, again, this is, like, I got to talk about some of I got educated on my own stuff today. That's cool, learning about the old school tech of these guys. And, I don't want to get too detailed because this is, they have proprietary processes and stuff, but as far as transparency into what we do, people deserve to know. Something that we started to hear, so without our when we don't remediate, and we try to have a diverse amount of strains, you're going to get diverse aromas. The mildewy aroma is something that I've heard from people, but then you look at the plant, you test the plant, there's not like, maybe it was a little bit wet cut, but that's more of a hay smell. When I smell mildew, like I've smelled those before, I have found that it's often a certain terpene blend. So, like, for me, it's like a bisabul or a humulene where you have a rubbery and, like,
Sometimes.
everything.
I mean,
but
there's some strains that smell like straight up mothballs, bro. Cheeto piss smells like fucking piss. Like
that-
cat
the
piss.
ammonia.
literally
Ammonia. There's
That's a
ammonia
terpene.
in
Ammonia
there.
is a terpene. As weird as it is.
Citronellol, because citronella is like the plants, but there's like a different way of, the terpene is pronounced differently. But there is literally like, because it's like an extra LA at the end. But
Citronella?
yes, but it's like citronella lol or something, like a little or something. It's
Yeah,
one of
like
those
a
where
little-
you sound funny, we feel funny every time you say it, but like that's a terpene too, and like that's a terpene that plants will produce to help bugs keep away, just like they produce myrcene.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things.
The terpenes to the plants, that's their
That's
natural
their
defense
defense.
system. That's all they have.
Exactly.
I mean, bro,
that's why we stress our plants and veg so that in flower they have a bit more of a they produce more terpenes. They produce a stronger aroma.
I don't know where my book's at right now, but I'll have to show you the book afterwards. Shout out to Dr. Jason Lepoy, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the neurologist that he worked on with the book. He's a PhD grad who works specifically on terpenes. He's in PA, actually.
Okay.
He wrote this book called The Cannabis Terpene Experience, which is where if you look at any of my terpene terpene things, they're all based off of that book. But like sponges produce terpenes. Yeah. Like, and he's got every single thing. That is like literally a college textbook level book.
Do you read?
But it reads like a regular book.
Do you read sci-fi, fantasy, stuff like that at all?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm a big nerd. I also listen to a lot of audiobooks. Like you are a huge nerd. You are a huge nerd. I'm not gonna.
Got Dragon Ball all over, bro. I got like Dragon Ball socks on. I got South Park socks.
Yeah, I mean, this is from a book. This is from a book. This is Lord of the Rings. Sorry, microphone. I'll be a little quieter there. So the reason I ask is because there's a sci-fi series that I was reading recently, and the authors, it's brilliant. And so there was within the first 10 chapters, they mentioned the word remediation and terpenes, neither of which were about cannabis. So the remediation, this is where I like kind of, if people don't know what the word means and I want to break it down to them, I was like, it's not a cannabis specific term. No. So in that sci-fi book, they would said, it's like these aliens came to the planet and abducted the humans, and the humans are competing in different rooms against each other, and then the winner of those two is fighting another group of aliens to be the most useful, right? It's like it's slavery alien down chain. It's some real weird stuff.
Kind of like some almost like the Hunger Games, but like on.
But if aliens came down and was like the ones that they picked you up, and then you're in a ship with other types of aliens, which ones are going to serve this system better, right? So it's like they're true dominators and taking it, and so. They've made this group that we're following makes it through the first step, and they're getting into the next room, and they're safe there, whatever. And he says the bathroom still stink of mold despite the remediation treatments. And I just kind of laughed. It took me a second. I was like, oh wow, yeah. It's like remediation just means getting rid of mold. It doesn't mean you're carefully taking care of a plant or doing something like that. It just means you're getting rid of mold.
You know what's really crazy?
Killing mold. Sorry, not getting rid of. Killing mold.
I was about to say.
Hence, that's why they say it still stank of remediation still stank of mold despite the remediation treatments. It just kills it so it can't be tested for. It's still molded.
So it doesn't sterilize it. It inoculates it. So it'll grow back. Mm-hmm. Who knows how long?
Yep.
That could be 3 months. Could be 2 weeks. Could be a year.
Yeah.
But it'll come back.
And then so the other terpenes came in there, which is, again, that's what's cool enough. And then terpenes, one of the aliens, they talk about how they make a little bit of noise. They don't move very much visually, but they basically, through their pores, they secrete terpenes that basically are how they communicate aromatically with each other. How cool would that be, like, as a species? Like, I mean, that's what cannabis is. It's all like it's like, imagine as like a species, you're just like little puffs of this and puffs of that mean different things.
Did you get that?
It's awesome, man. Like, it's just, so that was, I don't know, that's why I love like learning, like reading and that stuff, because it can inform your understanding of other stuff. Yeah.
No, it's cool. I mean, that kind of goes back to like the mycelium thing, like where it's like everything, they all have a different way of communicating. Just because it's not through English doesn't mean that it's not communicating.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, yeah, so
tell me about your scroll.
To bring this back to that, so I was at a cannabis event this week for some work stuff, and the employees were getting little signatures from all the vendors, and I was really inspired by that, and I found this old thing, and it had this big white empty side on the backside here, and I think both of us have been struggling with trying to find the simplest way to get people engaged, to understand the message, to have the politicians understand what we want. There's a million different complaints that we all have. I mean, the recrim, the level 3. I mean, but then there's like smaller things, the minutia, none of them are small. That's the problem. Is the people that maybe are able to speak out about them. It's a subset of people that can speak up on it. But there's a lot of issues right now. And we've all had issues trying to find. What do you guys want? What will work for people? And so something that I think I maybe coined this, but it's only because of discussions we had. It came out of like the calls that we had for the OCC.
I feel like it's partly inspired by Elliot's testimony, Gambino Clee, and a lot
exactly,
of ways.
Man, and like because like okay, let's be clear. Education backed is like EBTHC. It's education backed THC, but like that science based, there was something so effective about what Elliot did in the way that he's like, because I've talked to them about. I've tried to talk to them about these isomers. I've tried to talk to them about remediation. I've tried to talk to them about the acid and this stuff. But it's like, I was almost getting too detailed with him in the room. The way that Elliot was like a traditional teacher, where he was like, "Okay, let me hold your hand and get you to like." That was really impressive. And so,
Pretty
like,
sure he has kids.
but yep, he mentioned them. I mean, he was talking with my friend Shannon, who was there with her kid in the hallway. Like, she couldn't testify that day, but she had her 8-year-old son there, and the committee chair met her 8-year-old son, and we talked about the outdoor grow that we were building for my friend and how we made it ORC compliant and put the lock on the door. And
sidebar, real quick. You said that the chair was supposed to come see your place, but he doesn't call anyone back.
Well, he's not going to come see. We invited him.
But have you heard anything since then? From
No.
him?
I mean, James Powers, our man, he's been I actually showed his Instagram page to Seinenberg today, and he goes, "Oh, he's trolling." And I was like, "Well, I mean, like, how would you feel?" And he's like, "No, this is like that's his right as like a constituent." And I was like,
"Yeah,
thank you, man." Like, he's
again,
James isn't harming him. He's not like he's just trying to hold the man accountable.
Exactly. He's literally got his phone. He's showing his call logs, and he's going, "Look, dude, I've called this dude every single day at different points and times of the day."
And it would be one thing if Jim Thomas just tried to like wave the comment off, but when I asked him if he knew the name and I said he was a veteran, he said, "Oh, I'll look into that."
Yeah, the specific verbiage of your guys' conversation went, "Does the name James Powers mean anything to you?" And he went, "No, doesn't ring a bell." And he said he's one of your constituents.
He's a veteran.
And he's been trying to reach out to you. He would love a call back.
Yeah, that was not
And
written
he
in
went,
my testimony, but I kind of, yeah.
He went, I'll look into that. I'll try to
That was
get
after
back
I
to
already
him.
knocked him
And he
off
still
base
hasn't.
after asking about Teddy, because I emailed Teddy at 1 o'clock the night before, like, "Hey, I printed off a bunch of little pamphlets for them to have some education stuff. Can I hand it out?" And he's like, "I'll update your testimony or your witness slip to make sure it says so." I'm like, "That's my man." So I wanted to thank him, and that's when the meme Rodney made when he was taking his glasses off. I asked, "Hey, is Teddy here?" And let's just say that sometimes I don't want to make I don't know Jim Thomas that well outside of this committee. I've never interacted with him, but like sometimes politicians aren't used to their underlings being treated with the same respect that they think that they deserve. I don't personally think that politicians deserve respect until they show you that they have earned it.
A good leader.
But
I respect a good leader like Seinenberg. I respect a good leader like Isaacson. Honestly, I respect a good leader like Callender. I respect a good leader like, honestly, even Odioso.
yeah, like people
Odioso's
who
not
were
my district. He didn't have to answer my
dude.
call.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Like
he's
these people that call back and
they're new.
yeah,
The guys that are reaching out to us are usually the ones that are newer.
it's almost like they're not jaded. Like they still believe they should represent their people. They haven't been paid enough by other people.
Literally, fucking say it a little bit louder. Jesus Christ!
I was saying it right in here. Don't worry. It's hard to see, but again, like it's why we told people like Rep Seinenberg that it mean a lot that he came out, and unfortunately, he wouldn't let us buy him lunch because as a politician, you're not supposed to accept gifts. So tell me why this man can't let him buy for you couldn't buy him 3 pierogies. He wouldn't allow him to buy 3 pierogies, but corporations can fund Steve Huffman's entire lobby and campaign and stuff like that, but I can't feed a man who's asked me questions, who's called me on recess, who's meeting me in his district on like a Thursday so I can talk to him about this stuff. Like
I'm not trying to buy him pierogies to tip him. I'm trying to buy him pierogies because I bought you pierogies too.
Because we sat across from each other at a table and we enjoyed a conversation.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed old school community.
The fact
like,
that he took 2 hours out of his day, like I respected him for it. Like,
he talked to us about his
be
family.
like,
He asked us
thank you.
questions about things. He thanked us. He thanked us, dude. How like that's why. It's cool to see. It's cool to see that all of our ideas of what politicians should be isn't just a far off dream, but some people are trying to make it a reality.
And I will also say, you guys will probably hear a little bit more from him on this podcast because
He did agree.
I did talk to him, especially on the way out, about having him on. He seemed very interested in it. I wouldn't be surprised if he's watching this right now. Again, shout out Rep Seinenberg. You are awesome. I truly freaking appreciate you. I appreciate you, Rep Isaacson. I appreciate you, Rep Odioso. I appreciate you, Rep Callender. Callender used to be his district where we're sitting right now.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
So like, I respect Tim's or Rep Tim's. I respect Rep Muhammad.
Yeah, he showed up
Muhammad came to the town hall
at Anthony Riley, Ohio Cannabis's live town hall.
Yeah.
So really impressive to see that too. He stayed there for a long while. Me being me, I followed him out in the hallway afterwards and asked if I could have a word, and not only did I have a word, we had 15 minutes of words, and he gave me his personal number. And it's like, these guys don't have to do this stuff.
No,
like,
they could avoid us. Like,
you've seen the standards these other people have set. So
I mean, bro, like, we weren't even what number testimony was Mike? He was maybe 2 or 3 people after me, so I was 5, so he was 6, 7,
top 10,
maybe 7.
10,
I think it was like the 7th testimony, and you seen Stewart just get up, go.
Speaking of Mike too, did you notice that, man? It's almost like Representative Eric Seidenberg is like trying to be a real representative and listening to the committee, because he asked about Daniel Del Signore when I talked about somebody's personal things that they talked about in their testimony. He asked about that person by name. He said, "Oh, are you asking about blank?" Like he remembered somebody's personal testimony and then was able to associate that when I just gave him a couple comments when we're at lunch. Like that's a and you know, it's none of us are in his district, man. Like, we're all just concerned citizens that are standing up for a whole community, and he's representing a broader community. That's what a real leader is.
Yep.
So get back to this, though. We've gotten away a couple times now, so that the words, to bring those words all together. So the top 2 lines here are say that I believe that Ohio's cannabis industry should be education-based, EBTHC, science-backed, which is something that has unified so many of us in this, and community-focused. And the community-focused part comes from the fact that so many of us value this community as something that saved our lives, that has provided us with confidence, with comfort, with safety, or a number of other things. And so we're not asking for a whole lot from them. We voted on what we wanted already. We're asking, demanding more now, education and other things. But this, so I'll give you the pin here. I'll show you guys. So I just started asking some friends to sign this. But so we got this, some signatures on here already. You can see.
So it says, I believe that... What was that word?
Ohio's
cannabis industry should be education-based, science-backed, and community-focused. Signed. There's a lot of people on here. I'm going to go ahead and sign this. I want to sign right next to Ace.
Yeah, Ace Boogie right there. There's some really cool people on here. If you've been in the industry, you probably know some of these names. If you're new to the industry, you might see some of these names too. Shout out, we've talked about Ohio-only companies and people in Ohio having a chance. 100% Labs. Glenn, the owner and proprietor of that company, signed this. He's a processor, Ohio-only processor that's been trying really hard in this stuff. It looks like a cat signed this as well. Some people,
David Hall.
Yeah,
he's a homie.
Almost every single one of my community outreach people and sales team at KCG signed it. So it's just cool to see all of these different people.
I recognize a lot of these names.
Yeah, and this is just...
Shout out to Juliana Mellon. I knew her all the way back when she used to work for Ancient Roots.
Yeah.
And then she went over to another place.
She's with Groon now, man. Her and Brittany are killing it over there.
Yeah, she was like leadership over there.
And
now.
she's like high-level sales. And
yeah,
it's awesome.
Glenn is one of the most respectful dudes in the industry.
Boys Ace up here, so...
Turpy 2.0 right there. Was he at the event?
Yeah.
Okay. Patrick?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, we got... Who else do we got? I know there's Alicia Baker.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many really good people.
So my favorite thing about this too, not to end this on here, but is there's something that just feels very satisfying about that.
Yeah. It's a scroll.
Yeah, it's really a scroll, and I'm gonna need more of these, because I think that if, like Seidenberg was saying today, I think that if it's likely that some sort of bill is going to happen if they're willing to make enough amendments and changes to the language, and the legislative review council can get that put out and voted on in the next 2 weeks.
Now, I'll give Calendar again a shout out, because from what Seidenberg said is like, one thing Calendar and Odioso both are very stuck on right now is they want to see that 36%.
Yep, they want their municipalities paid, man.
And like perpetuity, like permanently. Like
none of this 5 years, 7 years, if you voted for it before 26. No. If you have a dispensary in your district, your community should be paid for choosing to look forward to get us closer to, like my friend was talking about, like community health centers that are like holistic healing and not just about enriching the pharmaceutical industry or enriching the healthcare industry, but about returning us to a more centered and balanced existence. And it's just exciting to see political leaders doing that, to see like community people and just people from all across the political spectrum coming together, taking dabs and hanging out and learning about each other and about why we're working together. So,
speaking of, I think I'm about to move that dab rig. I think it's far enough in that we can take a dab.
Let's go. So this has been a real good time talking about this stuff. I think that I think both of us are working on some different things now. Like I've talked a lot about EBTHC, and I think
which I will also be putting the website for that down in the
you.
description. So go ahead and check that out. If you are curious about learning about it, it's a good site for a reference tool. Like
it's just getting started. I plan to have a lot of stuff, and then from there we have a lot of other things forming. I mean, I think Rodney has made it very clear he plans to bring this podcast back. Not even because he misses doing it or anything like that, because he realizes how important it is to get some of these voices out here, and that people look to him as somebody that educates them, right? And like, you know, maybe he hasn't always called it direct education, but like Rodney has entertained, educated, and informed people, right? And so he's kind of recentering back on that podcast, which is great to see. I'm bringing in myself with EBTHC and doing that. Matt Hyde is forming this 501c3 and making it a legitimate organization with banking where everybody across the country can fund this man and fund what we're doing here. And then on top of that, we're going to build, and that's Civics Cannabis, and then we'll have this Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition, which I think me and Rodney both expressed some... So it wasn't our frustration at the coalition or anything else, it's our frustration at the politicians for pushing this through so quickly, because we were because a group chat was able to get out over 40 people to come testify together in this community. An Instagram group chat was a core to that. I'm sure other people were already going to testify and stuff like that, but a group chat was able to help organize over 40 people to come out and do that. Now people like me and Rodney, who maybe are never able to settle and always think that our success is... Every time I do something successful, I'm like, well, I was supposed to do that. I got to try the next thing. It's not healthy. I'm working on it. We seem to have bumped into that with each other.
Look, man, I grew up as a wrestler. I don't know how to
It's just some of these things are in there, man. I don't, there's something with my chemical imbalance. That's why I use cannabis to balance me out some.
I literally almost said it in my testimony that, like, we come in numbers and we got wrestlers with us. And if you know anything about Ohio wrestlers, we don't know when to stop.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll keep going.
It's so what I'm getting at is that the OCCC, the coalition right now, it is a Discord, and it is a group chat, but we have so much more. It's going to be an action arm of so many other things we're doing, and like some of the people that are helping organize it right now are calling it a hub, right? It's going to be a place where you can have open discussion, where you can submit your voice, where you can learn about what else is going on, and then if you find that you need to get deeper education, well, you go talk to EBTHC. You want to find you need long-form conversation, well, then you go check out the Rodney Hash podcast. If you need specific data and lobbyist actions, then you go contact Civics Cannabis. And so that's Ohio Cannabis Live, Ohio Cannabis Report. We're all going to be part of this OCCC because a rising tide lifts all ships. We're not crabs in a bucket.
And this community is huge, man. Like I think we're planning on making a website within the coalition, which I'll probably have Mike on at some point if he's willing to talk a little bit more on that.
Yeah, he's on vacation right now.
He deserves it, man.
He's smoking on the beach, man. He's been doing a lot for us.
Yeah, but so he's an IT specialist. He'll be making a website, and within that website, it'll kind of incorporate all of the information and try and bring everything together into one place.
Which is great because... Go ahead.
But also creating a forums page for us to all kind of... everyone to be able to interact, so that way it's not just this group chat of 150 to 250 people. We're almost up there because we're about to max out that group chat, which is why we've also got like a Discord and everything else, which is cool, but trying to integrate that all into one place, into one site, to where everyone can come in and everyone can be part of this, so we can all be informed, we can all post out our resources, and then it all coalesces.
It's great because, like, I think a lot of us have thought about doing bits and pieces of this before. Part of building EBTHC, like, I'm building a blog on there that has comments on it because I want you guys to be able to engage, but I can't moderate a forum. But a group of us as a coalition can all help moderate this thing together, and we can all have a place to do that. We can have
14.
We can have a blog that's on the website as well, where the blog that's on my website and the blog that's on other people's website automatically get put into the OCCC. If you start your own blog and it's cannabis related, we'll get that put into the OCCC. Like it is a spoke, it is a gathering place, just like cannabis is what brings us together in the real world. Like cannabis, the OCCC is going to bring people together digitally to make sure that we can show up and protect each other.
That's exactly it. So it's...
Yeah, we've been while working on that mission statement. It's cool having these conversations in real life. I'm not claiming I just made that to be the new mission statement, but being able to identify parts of this mission outside, right? I was reading the notes from the meeting that I couldn't attend because I was building outdoor weed shit, like trying to be busy in this community like we're all trying to do. So like,
and that's the other thing, they chose the time of year where we're all trying to plant our veg plants and shit, man. Like, we've all just got done vegging inside. Now we're trying to build out our outdoor grows and stuff. Like, dude, I want to be outside breeding this year. I want to be like Masonic Smoker and just out here do it. Like, I'm not even trying to sell these seeds. I just really like funny certain genetics. Like, I specifically, I'm working on
crossing stuff like that is so fun.
I've got Durban Poison Turps, basically, crossed with a honey banana washer. So my hope is to be able to find some type of washer that's got like really fruity Durban banana, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of variation that I'll have in there, especially because I'll be honest, like my Durban doesn't produce as much biomass as I would like it to be able to be viable for keeping. But bro, with that honey banana washing at like 3.5.
Yeah. That's exciting.
And then it's got Schwale's Sugar Shack too mixed into it. So like
Schwale
specifically breeds
honey, banana, sugar. Like you got a whole little. It's gonna be a very sweet and funky experience. Because you have like the haze coming in from the front, and then wow. Okay.
You know what's wild? Do you know how much Durban is in the background of most genetics?
Dude,
cherry pie. You love cherry pie, right?
A lot. Oh yeah, dude.
That's Durban.
A lot of. I mean, that's a lot true for a lot of landrace, right? Like, I mean, those land races are, and what. Maybe let's demystify this for some people, right? Like landrace, what that really means is like.
It's just how we found it recently. Like, it's the closest to natural, but I mean, this shit's been modified.
Yes, but like the idea of a landrace is that like it is the plant that grew in a certain region outside naturally for a certain amount of time, right? But
it eventually developed to its surroundings rather than us developing it to
people like to get all snooty about like, well, it's not a true landrace because it wasn't the original. Like this was actually. So here's the thing: is like cannabis has been moving all around this entire world for the entire hemp has been around for like. Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, and it's been picked up and dropped, and seeds have been moved here to. Everything has been a mix from the start. It's all cannabis sativa. It's all got some ruderalis in it now.
So you could go back, like I said in my testimony. So Jefferson procured hemp seeds, which are weed seeds, from China because at that point in time, China was allegedly had the best cannabis. Mm-hmm. That was the stuff that Queen Victoria.
You're telling me China's had good drugs throughout history?
Well, I mean, now they have the precursors to the good fentanyl.
I mean, have you ever heard of like the opium wars and like all of like the opium trade and all that stuff?
When you start looking into why they don't legally allow you to they didn't legally allow you to perform martial arts for years. Wow. Like Ip Man and them had to hide a lot of stuff because for years, like it was illegal to practice self-defense.
Yeah. Wow.
You weren't allowed to own guns, bro. Like China is.
Yeah.
When people say I want to be more like China, I'm like. No, you don't.
No, thank you.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, there may be an aspect or two that we could pull from that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
But that's like saying that, like, the Nazis had good ideas, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure they did. They made fertilizer. But other than that, like,
unfortunately, we took too few many of their ideas and their scientists in Operation Paperclip.
Oh, dude, the more you learn about that, dude...
And we're surprised that like we're surprised that right now in our country we're having a rise of autocracy and a rise of people thinking it's okay to put out the city hail. Like we brought that very ideology back to our thing so that we could make ourselves better. But it's like if there's not accountability,
some of that's partly the media, in large part because they'll twist stuff.
Yeah,
like no matter whether someone intends it or not, like you can find that.
Who's the media owned by? Is it the same corporations that we were talking about earlier that own the politicians?
I wouldn't be surprised.
So that's why OpenSecrets.org is awesome. So like when you really go into it, like the media is owned by about 3 families, and just like the ownership gets smaller and smaller the harder you look.
Have you ever seen the theory about how every president, I think before Trump, maybe or Obama, one of the two. Was like can all be like trace their lineage back to like British stuff, like British autocracy, and it's like wow, that's really fucked up. But I don't think that's so much a genetic thing. I think it's just like money's had money for a long time, like
predisposition to power. Yeah, damn.
So it's and even if you lose that money, you still got all the connections to all the friends that are rich. That we lost all our money, but like Uncle Jerry over there. You got a good idea, kid. You should go over to Uncle Jerry and pitch that shit to him.
Yep. Oh, man. This has been a great podcast, man. You want to maybe take another jab and check out that book you were talking about and wrap it up here?
It's up to you. Yeah, I mean, I got I don't know where that book's at, so I don't know about finding the book right now.
Oh, that's what I was
gotta
going to
show
wrap it
to
up
you.
here, and then
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, again, where can they find you? Give yourself a plug real quick.
Yes, sir. So EBTHC on Instagram. Again, that's Echo Bravo THC tetrahydrocannabinol. 5 letters, THC, we all know and love it, and then education-based, the way we all want to be treated with this stuff. The website is ebthc.me, pretty easy to navigate from there. I do have a Patreon that I've started, and I have some other ways of people to find out and support me. I'm actually working on a couple different, there's a lot of different ways to be on the internet now. I don't really want to be, like, social media is not really my favorite thing, but there's things like a Substack, and there's things like RSS feeds where you can have your blog shared to your Substack, which can be shared to this, and just ways to disseminate information to the people that want to follow it without having to find ourselves spending time on algorithm-fed social media all the time. I'm not to make a judgment if that's how you consume your media. I'm trouble consuming anything fed me by an algorithm anymore.
The more you start looking into it, the more scary
it's
the
just
stuff gets.
it's just I get so dystopian with it. So for me, it's like I like to
get
give
one
people.
documentary. I can't remember the name, but there was like a really famous documentary that went into like social media and how it's like the people that are coding it don't even understand it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think when Elon Musk bought Twitter, I think that kind of proved it.
Yeah.
Like no one there really knew what was doing what, so he was like, "All right, well, screw it. I'm just gonna start pulling shit apart and seeing what works and what doesn't work." And everyone, see now. I was never a Twitter guy, so I didn't see it. I just heard peripherally, but from what I heard, like everyone was like, "Dude, the shit keeps breaking like every 5 minutes."
It's
drove a lot of people
good ways to
away.
get information out there, but like I said, I'm trying to make it the most accessible. So ebthc.me, trying to make it a really easy to follow, easy to read website. And from there, though, like I said, Instagram right now is the best place to find me. We can upload. It's very easy for us to upload things for the testimonies, to go live for certain things and stuff like that.
And I will also say, if for whatever reason your Instagram account does get banned, people can use this as a reference tool, and I plan to do that for all future accounts because Instagram and Meta have been really bad about that.
Yep, and that's another reason I have a website outside of this. Like, that was one of my first things. Like, as I was getting closer to 1,000 followers, like every day, I was like, I got to get my website up, because the second you start to become, Mark Zuckerberg said it himself in front of Congress, like, you know, you're not there to be connected to friends and family on the social media anymore. The social media is about content, and when the social media website is about content, you're no longer like the customer. The customers are the people that are getting advertised to. The app is just a way to keep you engaged, but not really engaged, more so enraged and angry and then looped in. Well, right? So you're not the customer anymore. You are now
focused
like
on watch time.
Exactly. So you're no longer the customer that they're building their things for. You are now just part of the experience that they're selling to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And we have to do that for free. So I don't know, man. This is, if we're going to be in late stage capitalism, well, you better pay me for my time, my time and attention to my data. So, but we can end it on that one before me and you get a little too crazy with our political. Like I said, I got those political theory classes. We'll get pretty crazy with it if we get.
I'm sure we'll definitely have you back on.
This was great. Appreciate you, man.
All right.